Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rugged red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Many of you may not know this, but there is actually a difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. All veterans who have served are commemorated on Veterans Day, but those who have died for our country are especially recognized on Memorial Day. Before November 11th was known as Veterans Day, it was called Armistice Day. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, an official armistice was declared by the Allied nations in Germany, thereby ending World War I. The following year, President Wilson declared that each November 11th the country would pay tribute to all veterans who have fought and died for our country. After World War II, however, veterans urged Congress to change the word armistice to veterans so that all veterans, regardless of what war or conflict they were involved in, would be recognized. In 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill establishing November 11th as Veterans Day, and it has been celebrated every year since. A yearly Veterans Day national ceremony is held at the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. At 11 a.m., a color guard made up of members from each service march in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier in the Memorial Amphitheater. The tomb, also known as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, commemorates soldiers who have fought in war and have gone missing or could not be identified. The remains of an unidentified soldier who died in World War I are actually interred there. One of the most poignant moments in the ceremony is when a bugler plays taps as the president places a wreath on the tomb. Since 1937, specially hand-picked soldiers from the Army's 3rd Infantry Unit have been chosen to guard the tomb every second of every day, even during the wrath of Hurricane Sandy. On this Veterans Day, we hope you reflect back upon the sacrifices our veterans have made on our behalf. And we hope you enjoy this small tribute to all soldiers, past, present, and the future soldiers who will serve.
I've always been interested in the military. At first I wanted to join the Navy, but now I think the Army is more for me. I think it's a good opportunity to give back to your community and serve your country. And I think it's very honorable to do such a thing. There are a few reasons. I know there's a lot of aspects to the Navy, but the Army is more combat oriented, so I think I would enjoy that better than the Navy. I'm going to be doing ROTC, hopefully at University of New Haven. So once I get out of college, I will be a reserve officer. Yes and no. Yes, because obviously it's a war zone and there's a chance of you dying, but no, because I have a lot of friends who are in the military and they say it's just like a brotherhood. Everybody watches each other's back and you trust each other. You're one big family, so I feel safe. I would feel safe with them. My mom was not so happy, but my dad was all right with it. My brother's a police officer, so they're used to worrying and everything. So. I think it's a sign of respect because you're risking your life for your country and you're showing that devotion to the United States. I think it's a time to honor those who were killed and the families of those people who were killed and the people who are serving right now overseas. A lot of times people just look over that day, but I think it's good to mention them.
Well, you have to think that most people, when they join the military, they're coming right out of high school. So they're 18 years old, or maybe right out of college, so they're, what, like 22. So, I mean, we're basically just kids, you know, entering the military, entering a whole new life. Just as kids are making their transition into college, we're making the transition into the military. So, I mean, there's similarities right there. We're under a lot of pressure. We're learning a slew of new things. We're being exposed to a whole new world we've never been aware of before. So in that respect, you know, we mirror what a lot of the kids in college are going through. You know, and then if we go off to war, well, we're experiencing a whole new set of pressures there too. And I guess one of the things that makes us similar is that, you know, how do we deal with that? A lot of kids struggle with the pressures of the military, but then, you know, you try to think of how can I deal with that? I let loose. You know, we're kids, so what do? You know, we act silly, we goof on each other, we, you know, play pranks on one another. And the military is like the college life, except magnified. You know, I really think it's magnified in many respects because of the unique set of pressures that soldiers find themselves under. But at heart, we're just kids, and sometimes we just let loose just like kids.
오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 너는 낮에는 너만큼 따사로운 그런 선어해 커피 식기도 전에 원샷 때리는 선어해 밤이 오면 심장이 터져버리는 선어해 그런 선어해 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 지금부터 갈 때까지 가볼까 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 성숙해 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 여자 이때다 싶으면 묶었던 머리 푸는 여자 가렸지만 웬만한 노출보다 야한 여자 그런 감각적인 여자 나는 선어해 점잖아 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 선어해 내가 되면 완전 미쳐버리는 선어해 근육보다 사상이 울퉁불퉁한 선어해 그런 선어해 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 지금부터 갈 때까지 가볼까 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 위는 놈그 위에 나는 놈 베이베 베이베 나는 뭘 좀 아는 놈 뛰는 놈 그 위에 나는 놈 베이베 베이베 나는 뭘 좀 아는 놈 You know what I'm saying 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 오빤 강남스타일 에이 섹시 레이디 오빤 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일
Well, in the military, I'd like to be a marine engineer and would like to construct military buildings anywhere that the military takes me. I'm going to join right out of high school, and after I'm going to be going to college for 4 years and then back into civilian life. Well, home is where, you can just, at the end of the day, no matter where you are, kind of just go home and, wherever it is and just relax and have that sanctuary. So for me, home is, the sanctuary where you have people that love you, people that, care about you, and you can just, have ease of mind. You could also develop a home with the people that, your brotherhood in the military also. Well, it's going to be hard, yes, but I think, being in contact with them, the little that we will be in contact, you know, it's more of a, you know that they still love you no matter where you are kind of thing. And, you know, I will miss home a lot, but probably I'll miss the most was just coming home from school or coming home from wherever I am and being able to, you know, just hang out with my brother, hang out with my sister, and, you know, just relax as, like, you know, siblings or with my mom. That's probably what I'll miss the most. Well, my dad's not very happy. My mom, she kind of, you know, is very supportive of wherever I go. But my sister and my brother, you know, they know that I'm a smart, they tell me I'm a smart kid all the time. So they say, you know, wherever you go, you know, it's your decision, you know, you're making a smart decision wherever you're going.
Home meant everything to me. It's kind of ironic that it actually meant everything to me because I couldn't wait to leave Connecticut. You know, I didn't want to stay in Connecticut. I grew up in Bridgeport, and I counted the days until I left Bridgeport. And then once I was gone, I couldn't wait to return. Something about where you grow up, you know, you have your roots there. And it wasn't about like an apartment that I lived in or anything like that. It was the city itself. I had to return back to the city. So every time I would go on leave, and again, it was only a handful of times when I would get the chance to go back home, but I went back into Bridgeport. I saw my best friend Felipe. We would go to the arcade because this was way before Xbox or PlayStation. And we would just hang out in Bridgeport, and I'd be with my friends, and we just go around taking pictures, and I'd take those pictures back with me wherever I was stationed, and it just reconnected me with my past, with family, with friends. It really meant the world to me. And then, also coming home to my grandparents. Right before I left for the Army, I actually moved in with my grandparents. They lived in Fairfield. It was about 6 months before I graduated Central High School. And they gave me that safe haven. They gave me that place where I would be loved unconditionally. And I felt like such a bond with them that home became living with them. Not necessarily Fairfield, because I'll always consider Bridgeport my home. But for me, returning back to my grandparents and getting to spend time with them and live with them, that was home for me also. Well, when I joined, my dad, he flipped out. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he did not have a good experience over there at all. And so when I signed up, I mean, he really let loose on me, and he said, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You're going to be getting shot at. You're going to get blown up." I mean, he was not supportive of my move at all. My grandparents, they dealt with it. I mean, again, I was living with them for about 6 months before I left for the Army. I left the day after my 18th birthday, July 14th, 1988. I was gone, and they supported me. They didn't necessarily like it, but they supported me. My brothers were insanely proud of me. I think my second brother, the one 4 years younger than me, I have another brother 8 years younger than me, but Kurt, the one who was slightly younger than me, he always wanted to be in the military. That was his lifelong goal. In fact, he's in the Marine Corps right now. He's a captain in the Marine Corps, over 20 years in the Marine Corps. And when I joined the military and I left for the military, he wrote me more than anyone else. He was so proud of me, to serve my country. And then probably the hardest thing about me being gone was when I served in Desert Storm. My unit in Texas, I was stationed in San Antonio, Texas. They didn't get deployed overseas, but they asked for volunteers. They asked, who wants to go serve in Desert Storm in this war that was about to erupt, between ourselves and in Iraq, and I raised my hand. And I said, I want to go. And I had to then call up my grandparents, call up my family, call up my friends, and explain myself, which was a little bit uncomfortable. My grandparents didn't understand. They didn't understand why I felt the need to go overseas and volunteer for war. They did not like that at all. I guess they really didn't like it when I had to, I guess I didn't have to, but I wrote one of those, you know, if I die type letters, here's what I want done with the few things I own. And I sent them that letter, and I, you know, told them, only if I die do you have to open this up and figure out how to, you know, divide up my few possessions. But they didn't like that at all. It was a struggle for them. Yeah, there's returning from Desert Storm. That's probably the most profound experience I've had as a soldier, besides the war itself. You know, when we flew back, we flew into Bangor, Maine at first, and the reception was just amazing. I can't even begin to describe the energy of all the people that had gathered to welcome us back. We got off the plane, we go, you know, into the airport, and it was just filled to the brim with, I mean, hundreds of people cheering for us, clapping for us. Yellow ribbons were all over the place. Bands were playing. You had people from the VFW and AMVETS there. I mean, these old, you know, veterans from World War II and from Korea and from Vietnam. They were there to welcome us back. And I remember this World War II veteran came up to me, and he shook my hand. And he thanked me for my service, which was, you know, just amazing to me. How could you thank me for mine when you served in World War II? And he said, you know what? We will never, ever allow what happened to returning Vietnam vets. You know, we'll never allow that to happen to anyone else ever again. And I mean, he had tears in his eyes when he was like talking to me. And just to get that type of reception, that type of appreciation, made me really appreciate America. Made me think that this was my home, this country is my home, and made me love the country even more. You know, everything that we stand for, the things we have, the insane privilege that we have to live in this country. It just made me really love this country completely.
I just wanted to take a moment to welcome a very special audience member tonight. He has been serving overseas for the last year in Afghanistan. So please help me welcome Master Sergeant Joseph Devine.
Turn around.
Jessica's father called me. Jessica has a brother that is she wishes to be here today. I know what that's like. My wife and I had a son in Iraq in the Marines. Jessica, will you see your brother?
My buddy. Hi.
Is that your daddy?
Daddy. Yeah. Daddy.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is a soldier losing his or her life, you know, for our country. That's probably the foremost example of sacrifice. But a soldier sacrifices so much more than just that, you know. I mean, that of course is a major example, but just entering the military, you're leaving home, you're leaving friends, you're leaving your old life behind. You are truly alone in the beginning. You find a whole new set of brothers and sisters, a whole new family, but it never replaces what you've left behind. And then you miss out on all the things that happen back home. You know, for example, my grandmother died a few years ago, and my brother at the time was stationed in Iraq, and they wouldn't grant him leave to come home to the funeral. You know, she was ill for about a month, and she was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, and you know, he just couldn't come home. They wouldn't allow him to come home. You miss out on things like holidays. I remember I probably got home maybe once a year, and that was it, once a year for what, maybe about a week. And I remember one Thanksgiving, it was my friend Richard Turnbow, and it was we were sitting in the barracks on Thanksgiving, and our Thanksgiving consisted of going to the local PX and buying a pumpkin pie. And that was our Thanksgiving dinner, and that's how we spent Thanksgiving. We split the pie right down the middle and ate it. And that was our Thanksgiving dinner, you know, while the rest of my family is back home together, sharing those memories and sharing that experience of togetherness. You know, I'm sitting in the barracks with Richard Turnbow eating Thanksgiving Day pumpkin pie. And then, you know, so you have those moments, which I think are sacrifices that we make. And then just the idea that we are willing to give everything of ourselves for the country. We are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And really, when you think about it, how many 18-year-olds have to really make that commitment and sacrifice? Less than 1% of Americans serve in the military, less than 1%. It's something like 0.5%. So we are willing to put everything on the line for the other 99.5% of Americans. And at times, you know, especially in war, certain people have to make the ultimate sacrifice. They give their lives for us. I mean, they give everything for us, for our freedom. And it's remarkable.
Anytime the news would come on and they'd say one soldier was killed, just by the numbers we saw, Our crew knew, okay, if one soldier was killed, that means we've got 10 wounded today. We used the 10-to-1 rule. In the 5 months that my unit was over there, we evacuated 7,000 people. And when I tell people that back home, the majority of them don't believe me. It seems like America has, for the most part, except for maybe 15 seconds at the 6 o'clock news, has forgotten that there's a war going on.
You go to Iraq and you come back, and it's like, oh, you know, what have you been up to? What do you do? Well, I was in the Army, I was in Iraq. Oh, cool, you know, that's it. And then you're like, you know, I don't know, it kind of bums you out, you know. I mean, I don't know what it, you know, so I don't know, just to avoid that, I mean, I stopped telling people that, you know, I was over there.
I mean, that's the sign of a really decadent civilization, is one that sends young people out to do and to suffer the things that soldiers do and suffer in wars, and not to care about what those things are, and not to have any cost laid on them, even of knowing what is going on. To avoid even that cost, we seem to have avoided every other, but even to avoid that cost, that's a decadence. It's an unforgivable decadence.
All these people that come back from war, they permeate through their entire society. They become friends, lovers, co-workers, husbands, wives, you know, mothers, fathers, and it's part of what it means to be an American now.
We're so buffeted in our society by television and political news, and you get inured to it. It's just an abstract thing happening out in the world. And you may even have strong political opinions, one way or the other, but to care about the men and women living it day by day, it is a hard leap to make. It's partly what art does, what its function is. It can put you in the shoes of that poor sucker, you know, pinned down in that poor little courtyard in the middle of nowhere, and make you care about him.
The military provides a uniformed escort with all of the remains to take them back to wherever their final resting place is. The Marine Corps put out a call for volunteers to be escorts. I volunteered for that. I was by no means unique in that. That's how I came to be the one that took Chance Phelps back home. I thought it was just phenomenal, the way ordinary people who didn't know him at all, didn't know the circumstances of his death other than it was in Iraq, and obviously didn't know his family. Yet from Dover, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Billings, all the way to Wyoming, people were deeply saddened and grateful. And I got that. It's just something I wanted to remember.
When we arrived at Billings, I was the first off the plane. The funeral director had driven 5 hours up from Riverton, Wyoming to meet us. He shook my hand as if I had personally lost a brother. I picked up my rental car and followed Chance for the 5 hours back to Riverton. During the long trip, I imagined how my meeting with Chance's parents would go. I didn't know anything about Chance Phelps, not even what he looked like. I wondered about his family and what it would be like to meet them. I was very nervous about that. When we finally arrived at the funeral home, I felt I needed to inspect Chance's uniform to ensure everything was proper. Although it was going to be a closed casket funeral, I still wanted to make certain his uniform was squared away. Earlier in the day, I wasn't sure how I'd handle this moment. Suddenly the casket was open and I got my first look at Chance Phelps. His uniform was immaculate, a tribute to the professionalism of the Marines at Dover. I noticed that he wore 6 ribbons over his marksmanship badge. The senior one was his Purple Heart. I had been in the Corps for more than 17 years, including a combat tour, and was wearing 8 ribbons. This private first class with less than a year in the Corps had already earned 6. The next morning, I wore my dress blues and followed the hearse for the trip up to Du Bois. The service was to be at 1400 in the high school gymnasium up in Du Bois, population about 900, some 90 miles away. This was the most difficult leg of our trip for me. I was bracing for the moment when I would meet his parents and hoping I would find the right words as I presented them with Chance's personal effects. We got to the high school about 4 hours before the service was to begin. There were a few townspeople making final preparations when I stood next to the hearse and saluted as Chance was moved out of the hearse and into the gym. I practically bumped into Chance's stepmom accidentally, and our introductions began in the noisy hallway outside the gym. In short order, I met Chance's stepmom and father, followed by his stepdad, and at last, his mom. I told them about our trip. I told them how at every step Chance was treated with respect, dignity, and honor. I didn't know how to express to these people my sympathy for their loss and my gratitude for their sacrifice. Now, however, they were repeatedly thanking me for bringing their son home and for my service. I was humbled beyond words. The service was a fitting tribute to this hero. When it was over, we stood as the casket was wheeled out with the family following. The casket was placed onto a horse-drawn carriage for the mile-long trip from the gym, down the main street, then up the steep hill to the cemetery. I stood alone and saluted as the carriage departed the high school. I found my car and joined Chance's convoy. All along the route, people had lined the street and were waving small American flags. The flags that were otherwise posted were all at half-staff. For the last quarter mile up the hill, local Boy Scouts, spaced about 20 feet apart, all in uniform, held large flags. At the foot of the hill, I could look up and back and see how enormous the procession was. I wondered how many people would be at this funeral if it were in, say, Detroit or Los Angeles. Probably not as many as were here in little Du Bois, Wyoming. The carriage stopped about 15 yards from the grave, and the military pallbearers and the family waited until the men of the VFW and Marine Corps League were formed up, and the school buses had arrived, carrying many of the people from the procession route. Once the entire crowd was in place, the pallbearers came to attention and began to remove the casket from the caisson. As I had done all week, I came to attention and executed a slow ceremonial salute as Chance was being transferred from one mode of transport to another. From Dover to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to Minneapolis, Minneapolis to Billings, Billings to Riverton, and Riverton to Du Bois, we had been together. Now, as I watched them carry him the final 15 yards, I was choking up. I felt that as long as he was still moving, he was somehow still alive. Then they positioned him over his grave. He had stopped moving. Now he was home to stay, and I suddenly felt at once sad, relieved, and useless. It had been my honor to take Chance Phelps to his final post. Now he is on the high ground, overlooking his town. I miss him.
Nobody goes on a mission alone. We don't send Marines out on patrol alone, and they don't man a fighting hole alone. And Chance Phelps and the Marines he was trying to save, they were not alone that day, and there's no reason why he should be alone on his last mission, his last trip. It's just the right thing to do.